Hello friends, intraday. Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Automation Tech Guru. So in this video we will see some of the interview questions for .NET and C Sharp. So let's start. So today we are going to cover these questions. So there are question number one is what is the .NET framework and what are the core features of .NET framework. Then we will see the uh, difference between the .NET and C Sharp. Then we will see the .NET framework versus .NET Core and .NET 5.0, the framework. And then we will see what is the C Sharp and the core feature of the C Sharp. Then what is the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code. And then we will see what are the .NET assemblies. Then we will see what is the intermediate language or MSIL or CIL. So these are all the common names for the intermediate Microsoft intermediate language. Then we will see what is the C common type system and common language specifications. Then I will explain what is the .NET runtime and or CLR, and then we will see what is the use of uh, JIT, just in time compiler. Then we will see can we view the intermediate language code, how we can see that. And then we will see what is the benefit of compiling into intermediate language code. And then we will see that does .NET support multiple languages, programming languages, or if yes, then how many languages are supported by the .NET. And then we will see the CLR. This is the common language runtime. So I will try to cover of these question first. If time permit, then we will cover more questions here. So we will start from the first question. So what is the .NET framework and what are the core features of .NET framework? So .NET framework basically a software platform for building the web application and services for the Windows, iOS, and Linux operating system. As well as we can create the window forms, we can create the WPF applications on Windows operating system. So basically .NET framework is basically it is a software platform that basically allow you to create some kind of application. Maybe it is a web application or Windows application. You can have some services like web services or REST API services. Then you can also create some mobile applications. So this .NET framework allow you to create a number of applications we can be run on Windows, iOS, or even you can run in the Linux also. So some core features provided by the .NET are below. So it will support for numerous programming languages. So as I said, the .NET application can be created using C Sharp, F Sharp, and Visual Basic .NET also. So these are the basic programming languages can be supported by the .NET application, and with the C Sharp and F Sharp being the primary language for ASP.NET Core. So we also can create a web application using the ASP.NET Core. Then a common runtime engine shared by all .NET languages. So .NET provide a common runtime engine that will actually allow you to create n number of application based on different languages, and all languages can be supported and shared by this common runtime engine. Language integration. So .NET supports cross language inheritance, cross language exception handling, and cross-language debugging of the code. So for example, you can define a base class in C Sharp and extend this type in Visual Basic. So basically, cross language means whatever code you have created in the .NET, rather than it is in any particular language, you can use that as a DLL or as a namespace, and you can debug the code based on that particular language, and it can be utilized in different language that is supported by .NET. Then a comprehensive base class library. So this library provides thousands of predefined types that allow you to build core libraries, simple terminal applications, or a graphical desktop application and enterprise level websites. The next is a simplified deployment model. So .NET library are not registered into the system registry. Furthermore, the .NET Framework platform allow you to multiple version of the framework as well as the application to exist in harmony on the single machine. So you can have a multiple deployment. This will provide a deployment model where you can have n number of versions of your application, and that can be deployed anytime in any cost. And last is extensive command line support. So .NET command line interface CLI is a cross-platform tool chain for developing and packaging .NET application. So basically CLI is basically a command line interface that will allow you to create develop any kind of packaging of the .NET application, and also additional tool can be installed globally or locally behind the standard tools that ship with the .NET SDK. So the command line support will be available with the .NET SDK. So next question: explain difference between the .NET and C Sharp. So basically, .NET is a the key difference of the .NET is that C Sharp is not a platform but a programming language. So C Sharp is a programming language and .NET is a framework. The reason these terms are often confused or used interchangeably is that C Sharp was created by Microsoft specifically to work with the .NET framework. So .NET framework nothing but a platform where you can develop a any kind of application based on the languages .NET framework is supported. So C Sharp is a language that can be utilized to create any application, any kind of application that can be built on the .NET framework. So next question is .NET framework versus .NET Core or .NET 5.0. So if you will open Microsoft site for .NET, you will see these three options. One is .NET, the latest version is 5, also called .NET 5. Now it is 6 and 7 also available. And .NET Core, that is latest version is 3.1, and .NET Framework, that is latest version is 4.8. So first we will see the what is .NET Framework. So .NET Framework is a window-only version of .NET for building any type of application that runs on the Windows. It means that .NET Framework is built for the Windows machine only. So basically, when you talking about the .NET Framework, it is a window-only version. Means the application which you want to develop on the .NET framework that can be run only on Windows. It means the .NET framework is built for the Windows machines only. The first version of the .NET framework was .NET Framework 1.0, which was released around February 2002. And the last version of the .NET framework is 4.8, that is released on April 2019. And what is the .NET Core? So .NET Core is a free or cross-platform open source developer platform for building many different type of applications. So basically, the .NET Core is a free version. It will be a cross-platform, so any platform can be utilized, and open source developer platform. It means that it will be open source, so you can utilize anywhere without paying any cost. Uh, for building the many different type of applications. Okay, and the first version of .NET Core was 1.0, and that was released in 2016, and last we are using is 3.1. So in case you are assembling another application, have a decision between .NET Core and .NET Framework, .NET Core is will be the best approach. The .NET Core is more qualified for the cross-platform needs, because when you create any application in Windows, it should be run in other platform like Linux or any other platform. So .NET Core application work on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS also. So you may choose .NET Core if you are planning to follow microservices architecture. And what is .NET 5? .NET 5. So .NET 5 or .NET is a free cross-platform open source developer platform for building many different type of application. .NET 5 is the next major release after .NET Core 3.1. The word core is dropped from the name of the emphasize that .NET 5 is the future of all the earlier version of .NET Core. Recently, in Feb 19, 2021, Microsoft has announced .NET 6 preview version, and .NET 6 stable version is scheduled to release in November 2021. So that is already released. So next question is, what is the C Sharp and core feature of C Sharp? So C Sharp is a programming language whose core syntax looks like similar to the syntax of Java. However, calling C Sharp Java clone is inaccurate, because in reality both C Sharp and Java are member of the C family of programming languages like C, Objective C plus C++, and therefore share a similar syntax. Core Shisha features that are found in all versions of language is no pointers required. Shisha programs typically have no need to direct pointer manipulation, automatic memory management through the garbage collection. Given this, C# does not support a delete keyword. Formal syntactic constructors for classes, interfaces, structures, enumerations, and delegates. The C++ like ability to overload operators for a custom type without the complexity. Support for the attribute based programming. This brand of development allows you to annotate types of and their members to further qualify their behavior. For example, if you mark a method with the absolute attribute, programmers will see your custom warning message print out if they attempt to make use of the decorated member. So next question. What is the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code? So it is important to note that the C# language can be used only to build software that is hosted under the .NET runtime. So basically, whenever you create any application using C# language, and if you run that application using the or hosted the application or software in the .NET runtime, then the term used to describe the code targeting the .NET runtime is managed code. So basically, if you see what is the managed code, so basically whatever code you have written in the language of any language like C Sharp, VB, or anything, and that can be built and hosted on the .NET runtime, means that the target compiler or target runtime should be the .NET runtime. So it will be a managed code. The binary unit that contains the managed code is termed as assembly code, and that cannot be directly hosted by the .NET runtime in termed unmanaged code. So if any application that is not directly hosted by .NET runtime or not developed in the .NET runtime, that will be called as a unmanaged code, and that can be required some kind of third party DLLs or some other exes. The .NET framework platform can run on a variety of operating systems. So it is quite possible to build a C# application on a Windows machine and run the program on an iOS machine using the .NET runtime. As well, you can build the C# application on Linux using Visual Studio Code and run the program on Windows. With the Visual Studio Code for Mac, you can also build a .NET application on a Mac to be run on Windows, Mac OS or Linux. So basically, whenever you create any application that is actually targeting or supporting the .NET runtime or building on the .NET runtime platform or .NET framework platform, that can be run anywhere wherever you are having the .NET runtime. So those code will be called as a managed code, but unmanaged code can still be accessed from the C# program, but it then locks you into a specific development or deployment target. So your target will be the different one. So next question, what are the .NET assemblies? So when a star.dll has been created using a .NET compiler, the binary blob is termed as an assembly. So assemblies that can be either a star.dll or star.exe. .NET projects are always compiled to a file with the .dll extensions, even if the program project is an executable. So executable .NET assemblies are executed with the command .NET assembly name.dll. So basically, what is the assembly? Assembly is basically a created a code or binary blob that is basically uh, created based on the or in the name of .dll or .exe. So that comes as a assembly, and that will be a executable file. So an assembly contains a CIL code in that it is not compiled to platform specific instructions until absolutely necessary. Typically, absolutely necessary is the point at which a block of CIL instructions is referenced to use by the .NET runtime. Assemblies also contain metadata. Metadata means the data about data. So the metadata that describes in vivid detail the characteristics of every type within the binary. In addition to CIL and type metadata, assemblies themselves are also described using metadata, which is officially termed as manifest. So the manifest contain the information about the current version of the assembly, culture information used for localizing string, image or resources, and the list of all externally referenced assemblies that are required for proper execution. So basically, I will show you how these assemblies are written, how it is showing in the .NET when we will install and work with the Visual Studio 2023, sorry 2022. I will show you how this metadata assemblies, how this manifest is written in the assembly. I will showcase in coming sessions. So what is the IL? Microsoft Intermediate Language, MSIL, or Common Intermediate Language, that is CIL. So all these three names can be asked when someone asks what is IL. It means it is asking for the intermediate language, that will be MSIL or Microsoft Intermediate Language, or CIL, that is Common Intermediate Language. So basically CIL is a language that sits above any particular platform specific instructions. So I will show you C one class file. So I am having a calculator.cs file. Okay, so here I just creating object of the calculators, cal c equal to new cal c, and then I'm just creating one variable integer ans and c dot add 10 and 84. Now I'm writing that console.write line, so I will display this 10 plus 84 is whatever answer is coming, that is assigned to the integer ans. wait for the user to press the enter key and console write line. So how this will work? So in the C class Kels, so I'm having this class Kelsey, and in this I'm having a add method, and it will return the add one number and integer add second number. So compiling this code produced a file start.dll assembly that contains the manifest, CIL instructions, and metadata describing each aspect of the calculator class and program classes. So this was the program class and this was the calculator class. Next question. What is the common type system and common language specifications? So a given assembly may contain any number of distinct types. In the world of .NET, type is simply a general term used to refer to a member from the set of class, interface, structure, enumeration, delegate, etc. When you build a solution using .NET language, you will most likely interact with many of these types. The common type system is a formal specifications that documents how types must be defined in order to be hosted in the .NET runtime. So basically, the common type system means you have comes a certain type of type like a string, integer, double, float, whatever type you are defining, that can be utilized throughout the .NET framework so that it can be hosted in the .NET runtime. So there are five type of defined the CTS in their language of choice. So there are five type of CTS available with the .NET framework. So one is CTI class type. So every .NET language supports at least the notion of the class type, which is a cornerstone of the object oriented program, that is the OOPS concept. A class may be composed of any number of members such as constructor, properties, methods, or events, and the data point fields. In C Sharp, classes are declared using by class keyword. Then second is CTS interfaces. So interfaces are nothing more than a name collection of the abstract member definition or introduced in C Sharp 8 default implementations, which are implemented optionally in the case of default implementation by giving a class or the structure. In C Sharp, the interface types are defined using the interface keyword. Third is structure type, CTS structure type. The concept of the structure is also formalized under the CTS. If you have a C background, you should be pleased to know that these user-defined types have survived in the world of .NET, although they behave a bit differently under the hood. The simply put, a structure can be thought of a lightweight class type having value-based semantic that should not be a object-oriented. This is object-based. Basically, if I put here, that will be the object-based, not the object-oriented. Okay, and fourth one is the enumeration type. So enumerations are handy programming construct that allow you to group name value pairs. For example, assume you create a video game application that allows the player to select from three character categories: wizard, fighter, or thief. Rather than keeping track of simple numerical value to represent the each possibility, you could build a strongly typed enumeration using the enum keyword. So I'm just giving the example. If I want to create enum, I just put the enum, and inside that I just create what these three names, right? You can just have this as a enum. So I can put wizard, then you have a fighter, and then you have thief. So this is the enum. So when you call this enum, you have an object of this enum dot. You can have this enum. Maybe you can have this games. This is the games. So whenever you want to call this, you just need to use uh, games dot wizard if you want to call wizard. That's it. So it will return the wizard. So in this way you can use the enumeration type also. Next is CTS delegate types. So delegate are the .NET equivalent of type safe or C style function pointer. So basically you can pass a uh, parameterized function to the function. So the key difference is that the .NET delegate is a class that derived from the system multicast delegation rather than a simple pointer to a raw memory address. Delegate are declared using the delegate keywords. So as you are aware, the different language expression, the same programming constructor is unique language specific terms. For example, in C Sharp, you don't denote a string concatenation using the plus operator, while in VB you typically make use of the ampersand. That is the ampersand. This one. Even when two distinct languages express the same programming item, a function with no return value, the chances are good that some syntax will appear quite different on the surface. And the CLS, Common Language Specification, is a set of rules that describe the vivid detail the minimal and complete set of features a given .NET compiler must support to produce code that can be hosted by the .NET runtime, while at the same time be accessed in a uniform manner by all languages that target the .NET framework. In many ways, CLS can be viewed as a subset of the fully functional defined of CTS. Next question. So, what is the .NET runtime or CLR? So the term runtime can be understood as a collection of services that are required to execute a given compiled unit of code. For example, when Java developers deploy software to a new computer, they need to ensure that Java virtual machine has been installed on the machine in order to run their software. So in the .NET waveform offer at another runtime system. The key difference between .NET runtime and various other runtime it just mentioned in the .NET runtime provide a single well-defined runtime layer that is shared by all language and platforms. I think this question is also having below somewhere I've seen. Yeah, so I can just put this also at the above and I just cut it down here and put question number 9. Yeah, yeah. So yes. Now, the .NET provides a runtime equivalent called the Common Language Runtime that runs the code and provides service that make the development process easier. The compiler and tools expose the Common Language Runtime's functionality and enable you to write the code that benefits from the managed execution environment. The code that you develop with the language compiler that targets the runtime is called managed code. Managed code benefits from features such as cross-language integration, cross-language exception handling, cross-enhanced security, versioning and deployment support, a simplified model for component interaction and debugging and profiling services. So if someone asks what is the runtime or CLR, common language runtime, it's just kind of a runtime where you can execute your application and it will provide your runtime environment that runs the code and provide the service that make your development process easier. And you can have also the benefit, that is cross language interaction, language cross language exception handling, security, enhanced security versioning and deployment, a simplified model, the runtime the component interaction and debugging and profiling services. The runtime provide the following benefits: performance ability, performance improvements. So basically, it improve your application performance, the ability to easily use component developed in other languages. So it will allow you to run or utilize the other language component in your application. The extensive type provided by the class library. The language features such as inheritance, interface, overloading for the object-oriented programming, then support for the explicitly free threading that allows creation of multi-threaded and scalable application, support for structured exceptional handling, support for custom attribute, garbage collection, and use of delegate instead of function pointers for increased type safety and security. So next, what is the use of JIT? That is time compiler. So basically, just-in-time compiler is a part of common language runtime in .NET, which is responsible for managing the execution of the .NET programs, regardless of any .NET programming languages. So basically, whatever .NET code you have written in any language which is supported by the .NET runtime, that can be run or execute or manage the execution of the .NET code can be done by the compiler, and that compiler name is just-in-time compiler. So this intermediate language is then converted into the machine code by the just-in compiler. This machine code is specific to the compute environment that the JIT compiler runs on. Working on JIT compiler, the JIT compiler is required to speed up the code execution, provide the support for multiple platforms. This JIT compiler converts the Microsoft Intermediate Language, that is MSIL or CIL, into the machine code. This done before the MSIL or CIL can be executed. The MSIL is converted into machine code, or on a requirement basis, the JIT compiler compiles the MSIL or CIL as required rather than the whole of it. The compiler compiled MSIL is stored so that it is equivalent to the subsequent call if required. So basically, just in compile, it convert your intermediate language into the machine code so that it can be utilized, it can be read correctly, and it will be stored somewhere. So what are the type of time compiler? There are three type of JIT compilers, which are follows. One is free JIT compiler. All the source code in compile into the machine code at the same time in a single compilation cycle using the pre-JIT compiler. This compilation process is performed at application deployment time, and this compiler is always implemented in the nggen.exe, that is native image generator. Normal JIT compiler. So the source code method that are required at runtime are compiled into machine code. The first time they are called by the normal JIT compiler. After that, they are stored in the cache and used wherever they are called again. And then third one is Econo JIT compiler. The source code method that are required at runtime are compiled into machine code by Econo JIT compiler. After these methods are not required anymore, they are removed. This JIT compiler is obsolete starting from the .NET 2.0. What are the advantages of JIT compiler? So the JIT compiler require less memory uses as only the method that are required at runtime are compiled into machine code by the JIT compiler. Page faults are reduced by using JIT compiler as the method required together are most probably in the same memory page. And third one is code optimization based on the statistical analysis can be performed by JIT compiler while the code is running. And what are the disadvantages of this JIT compiler? So the JIT compiler requires more startup time while the application is executed initially. The cache memory is heavily used by the JIT compiler to store the source code methods that are required at runtime. Note: much of the disadvantage of the JIT can be handled using the ahead of time compilation. I will explain this in later session. This involves compiling the MSIL into machine code so that runtime compilation is not required and the file machine code can be file can be executed natively. So these are the advantage and disadvantage of the JIT compiler. Now next question is it possible to view the intermediate language, that is MSIL? So ReSharper allow you to study your source code and decompiled symbols as intermediate language or as C sharp with different level of syntax sugars. So the ReSharper, what is ReSharper? So basically ReSharper is the one of the most popular plugin for the Visual Studio that helps with the code navigation, editing features, analyze your code quality, eliminate errors, code smells, safety changes, uh, the code base, and much more. Basically, ReSharper is a third-party tool that is coming as a plugin in the Visual Studio, and that can allow you to view your intermediate language or MSIL code. Next question: what is the benefit of the compiling into IL code? If the full compiled exe is executed in a different environment, it is highly possible that it can run slow if the environment is different. So this does increase the startup time, which is very minimal, but there is considerable performance gain when the application is running. So basically, why we require the compilation? So basically, we need to run your application in the performance should be correct, otherwise the application will be slow. That's why we are trying to compile all the intermediate language code using the compiler. It is much faster to parse JIT compiler IL code than to parse a high level language like Java or specifically C sharp. It also allows developer to use new language features without updating anything on the end user machines. So next question: does .NET support multiple programming languages? So answer is yes. It allow around 60 languages which can be used in the .NET framework. Can be used .NET framework or .NET platform to create the application. So .NET provide multi-language support by managing the compilers that are used to convert the source code into IL and from IL to native code, and it enforces program safety and security. The basis of multiple language support is common type system and metadata. So that's why this intermediate language is coming into picture. If you have written any code in any language, once it will come to the compiler or runtime environment, then it will be converted into MSIL, and then that in MSIL is converted into the native code. So once it is converted into native code, that is a binary code actually, and that can be readable by any compiler. So it doesn't matter in which language you have written the code, it comes into the native code, and that will be a binary code. So Microsoft offers around 10 languages on the .NET framework, which is listed here. So first is C Sharp. So as I said, the C Sharp is a cross-platform general purpose language that makes a developer's productivity by writing the highly perform code. With a million of developers, C Sharp is the most popular .NET language. C Sharp has broad support in the ecosystem and all .NET workload. Based on the object-oriented principles, it incorporates many features from the other paradigm, not least functional programming. Low-level features support high-efficiency scenario without writing unsafe code. Most of the .NET runtime and libraries are written in C Sharp. So advanced in C Sharp often benefit all the .NET developers. Second language is F Sharp. F Sharp is a second robust and performant language that is basically expression based and immutable by default. It focuses on the expression power, simplicity, elegance, and is used by many thousands of developers that ap- appreciate its programmatic function first approach to .NET. F Sharp offers the full power of .NET and work well with C Sharp with mixed language solutions. The community made significant contribution to the compiler and runtime as well as a broad array of F Sharp tools and frameworks. Third is Visual Basic. So Visual Basic has a long history as an approachable language favoring clarity over brevity. It's hundred of thousands of developers are concentrated around the traditional window-based client workload where VB has long pioneered great tooling and easy of use. Today, VB developer benefit from a stable, mature, object-oriented program paired with with a growing .NET ecosystem and ongoing tooling improvement. Some .NET workload are not supported in VB. It is common for the VB developer to use the C Sharp. C++. C++ also used in the .NET framework. It is a popular programming language used to develop computer programs. Most common is game creation, other high performance application. Most programmers use this general purpose coding language to develop operating system applications, browsers like Firefox, Chrome, Safari, software engineering, and many more. J Sharp. J Sharp is also another popular programming language created by the Microsoft based on the Java. The language compiler into the MSIL for .NET. It is also support the JDirect interface to Windows and COM objects. J Sharp also provides developers with the tools for creating Java application and easy transition that works on Microsoft .NET Runtime Platform and Framework Library. J Sharp quickly moved Visual J++ software to the .NET and is considered the most productive Java IDE on the market. This language also runs several existing Java applications after simply binary conversion and recompiler. One primary goal of JSharp by Microsoft is to provide Java coders easy access to the .NET platform. 6 is PowerShell. PowerShell combines the scripting language, a command line shell, and a configuration framework, making it a cross-platform task automation solution. So PowerShell nothing was a command prompt that basically allow you to write the script, some of the scripts based on the some commands, and you can also configure the framework using it. It builds on the .NET framework made open source in August 2016 and run on Windows, Mac OS, and also in the Linux. Since it's built upon the .NET, it is easy to develop scripts, run your task, start application, or manage system remotely, specifically by nearshore developer or locally. Typically, PowerShell is utilized to for automating the system management. JavaScript.NET. JavaScript.NET is also a scripting language created by Microsoft for .NET programming. Microsoft developed it on the previous standard of JavaScript. This object-oriented programming language supports the function overloading, inheritance, classes, polymorphism, and other features. Besides C++, JavaScript is also is only the different standardized language available in the .NET framework. It gives developers the certainty of the ongoing multi-vendor support for this language. Iron Python. Iron Python is a cross-platform and open source implementation of the popular Python programming language, tightly integrated with the .NET. It functions as an extension to the .NET framework, but .NET project can utilize it to capitalize the Python's scripting power. Since Python is easy to learn and read and has a large community contributing to its knowledgeable, Iron Python brings its vast tools resources of the .NET framework. In turns, it allows Python users to tap into the .NET for their coding and programming needs. TypeScript. TypeScript is a robust programming language that extends JavaScript and enhances a developer's experience, allowing them to add type safety to their projects. It also presents features such as abstract class, function overloading, type allies, generic interface, tuples, and more. This free open source programming language built and managed by the Microsoft and enhanced Angornos through type-based auto compilation in IDE. And 10th is last one is the PHP Thorough Phalangar. This is a popular web-based general purpose scripting language, and this allows programmers to do the PHP development using the .NET. It is a front-end compiler for compiling PHP source code. It further compiled PHP code to the MSIL remains fully compatible with the PHP behavior. So these are the some questions which I have used in this video. So you can see there is 13 questions we have 13 questions we have answered today, and again I just summarize these questions. So what is the .NET framework? So .NET framework is a platform, and what are the core features? So you can see the features that it allow you to create common languages, use you can use common language, you can create the class libraries, you can have the multiple language interaction, you can have the command line support, you can have the deployment model. Then the question was the explain the difference .NET and C Sharp. So .NET basically a platform on which you can create a program using the C Sharp language. .NET framework versus .NET Core and .NET 5.0. So .NET framework basically a platform, and .NET Core basically it allow you to create a core applications using the .NET Core, and .NET 5 basically is the framework number, the version number of the framework. Then what is the difference between the managed code and unmanaged code? So the code which is basically written in the .NET and hosted on the .NET runtime, that will be called as a managed code. But any code which is not written in the .NET or not supported or hosted on the .NET runtime, that will be called as a unmanaged code. And for this you should have some kind of third-party DLLs to execute that code. What are the .NET assemblies? So .NET assembly nothing but the information of the manifest and metadata. So the metadata nothing but is a data about data. So whatever code you have run, you have executed in the .NET runtime, it will create an assembly based on the .dll or .exe, and that assembly having all the basic information of the manifest and metadata. What is the intermediate language or MSIL language or common intermediate language? So the MSIL, IL or CIL. The basically this language is whenever you create any program in the .NET platform that is supported by the .NET runtime, it will generate the CIL code, and that will compile by the JIT compiler. What is the common type system? So as I said, there are some of the common type system like you have strings, you have, so you can have a class type, you can have interface type, a structure type, then enumerated type, or you can have the delegate type. So these are the some common type which can be used in the .NET. And CLS basically the subset of the common type system. What is the .NET runtime or CLR? So basically whatever code you have written in the .NET platform, that can be hosted in the .NET runtime. So it is called a common language runtime. What is GIT compiler? So just in compiler, basically the compiler which can execute your code, and it will convert MSIL into the machine learning code or machine code, and after that it will be converted to the native code. So yes, we can view the IL code using the resharper. So resharper is a tool which allow you to create that is basically add-on in the .NET Visual Studio. You can add in the add-ons. What is the benefit of the compiling into the IL? So basically the intermediate code, basically when you compile this code, it will be convert it into the machine language and machine code, and then after it will be converted to the native code, that is the binary code. So that any language, the code is written in any language, it can be converted to the same binary code. Does .NET support multiple language? Yes, we have seen that there are 10 languages, which is we have already seen, but there are more programming language can be supported by the .NET. What is the CLR? So this question is already completed. So these are the 13 questions which we have gone through today. I hope uh, I hope you got the correct answers to this. And if you have any kind of questions, you can comment on. So we will consider in coming sessions. So thank you very much for joining the session.